in Nebraska. I commuted every day. Actually, that's a funny question. I hate to interrupt you. Please. I had a teammate that lived in Canada, in Toronto. Why not? And he used to commute every day in a limo. I ain't going to say anything else. All right, continue.
That's why I asked the question, not making any assumptions. You lived in Buffalo, I lived in Philly. We're both accustomed to driving in snow.
Yes.
And when you drive in snow, you're not supposed to slam on the brakes. You're just supposed to tap them. So you're supposed to tap the brakes when you drive.
Just tap it, don't slam it.
So don't slam on it. I'm not slamming on the brakes for Jalen Hurts, but I'm going to do it like I did when I was in Philly driving in snow.
What?
I'm just going to tap the brakes, Sal. I'm just going to tap the brakes. We got to tap the brakes because people like you and Bucky Brooks, all of a sudden, they said, Jalen Hurts, and y'all jumped on this bandwagon and forgot everything else and left everybody else behind you. But what I am going to say is, you read the prompter, you read the read coming into this, including 3 turnovers in the fourth quarter. God, dog. Including 3 turnovers in the fourth quarter. Including 3 turnovers in the most important game of the season, the 2 most important drives of the season, 2 red zone turnovers. Now, again, let's all put out there he's a rookie, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let's get all the sweet nothings out of the way. Let's get all the excuses out the way.
Let's go.
But the fact of the matter is, 3 turnovers in the fourth quarter
You keep saying
of the most important game of the season. I'm going to say this before I make my big point and I knock you out with my haymaker.
Whoa.
Last year, Week 16, Cowboys versus the Eagles, season on the line. Cowboys had to win, Eagles had to win. Whoever won makes it into the playoffs. What happened? Carson Wentz, with no talent, no receivers out there, no top-tier receivers out there, went out there and won that game. Cowboys had all of their players, all their stars. Week 16, 2020, Cowboys versus Eagles. Eagles control their own destiny. Eagles must win, Cowboys need to win. What happened? Eagles ain't get it done. Now, here's what I'm going to say, Marcellus, because you're going to come up here with all this fanciful jargon. It's going to be meaningless. I'm going to say this. I told y'all I needed a fire, not a spark. I told y'all I needed a fire from Jalen Hurts. I didn't need a spark because sparks eventually die out, and they don't necessarily light a fire. Let's look at Carson Wentz versus Jalen Hurts, a 16-game projection. Shall we please, America? Let's just look at it quick. So Jalen Hurts would have accounted for 32 touchdowns if we were to stretch this out with 21 giveaways. Carson Wentz would have accounted for 28 touchdowns with 25 giveaways. Marcellus.
Yes, sir,
that looks eerily similar to me, sir. That looks eerily similar. 28 touchdowns, 32 touchdowns, 25 giveaways, 21 giveaways. Again, Jalen Hurts gave us a small sample size, so this bias may actually be working in his favor. But that looks eerily similar to me for everybody like you and Bucky to simply say, hey, throw Jalen Hurts out. What time does trash pick up? Y'all say Tuesday and Friday? Okay, we'll have Carson Wentz out here on Tuesday. You said 7:30 a.m.? Yeah, we'll have Carson Wentz out at the front of the street for the trash to come pick him up. Those numbers, Sel, look far too similar for us to not at least tap the brakes on Jalen Hurts and his accomplishments.
Oh, so many ways we're going to go with this. Let me start off by saying, if I wanted to edit this question, it would go like this. Are you ready to hit the gas on Carson Wentz again? Ooh, think about that in contrast. I don't know about that if I'm the Eagles organization. But let's address the question at hand. No, don't pump the brakes on this young kid. One thing you have to understand, Acho, that we're only having this conversation because Carson Wentz is owed a ton of money. They are handcuffed to Carson Wentz to some degree, or there will be huge penalties because of his compensation. It's not because of his performance. If this was just performance-based, as sports is supposed to be. Remember, it was a meritocracy when we used to play sports. We used to say, hey, we just picking the best player no matter background, color, creed, etc.
Yes, sir.
But this one is about money because there is no conversation if we were to take the money out of this conversation. You just showed me a full screen that showed that Jalen Hurts was better than Carson Wentz in both categories. But you don't even want to live by the meritocracy. Even though they're comparable, which one was better? We talked about this before. Photo finishes still have to declare a winner.
Yes, sir.
And we declare a winner, and even your full screen, that Carson Wentz is the loser and Jalen Hurts is the winner. But I hate that full screen of all the full screens you had because that full screen assumes uniform behavior.
Sure.
And you, what What human being playing any sport is going to go out there and give you the same thing all the time?
That full screen does also, it also assumes Jalen Hurts' greatness, just like it assumes Jalen Hurts' downfall.
No one, hey, look, I'm not talking about greatness. I'm talking about sample size. I'm talking about the reason why you even inserted Jalen Hurts is because Carson Wentz was so horrible. With all the money that was keeping him in that position, an organization drafted at his position and then said it's still your job for you to lose. And he lost it. And this is not the first time he's been in a conversation of potentially being supplanted by another quarterback. Nick Foles was in this same conversation a few years ago, and they chose Carson Wentz. Now we're in the same place again. Is this the Twilight Zone where all of a sudden we got to say Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts? My point is this simple.
What's your point?
You can't have a 68-game sample size guy who was allowed to ride the roller coaster
into a Super Bowl,
and then a 3-game sample size and have to judge that so harshly. I have a 5-year-old son.
Yes, sir.
I have a 1-year-old daughter.
Okay.
My 5-year-old doesn't think it's fair that I look at him and talk to him differently than my daughter. He's like, Daddy, she gets to do it. I'm like, she's 1, you're 5. You have to lead by example. There are different developmental phases. When you're in this year 5, guess what? I'm looking at you different, Carson Wentz, than I'm looking at Jalen Hurts. So when my daughter throws the Cheerios or 3 turnovers in the 4th quarter, I understand. It's only a 3-game sample size, but you've shown me so much, Jalen Hurts, that I'm going to continue to ride with you.
Let's not make this something about ageism, some sort of delineation about ageism.
You made it about money?
This is the game of football in which is very simple, Sal. I don't care what I owe you. I don't care how old you are. Can you help me win or can you not? We talk about Carson Wentz was so terrible. Jalen Hurts has a streak. He's been starting for 3 games. In those 3 games, he's never had a completion percentage over 57%. That means he has 3 consecutive games of a completion percentage below 57%.
That's not good.
Only one quarterback, all league, all year, has done that this season. Matt Ryan, from week 11 to week 13. You love completion percentage. Because you come up here and you stand on this table and say, Cam Newton have a completion percentage of 67. That's what you do. So if you want to love completion percentage, let's talk about it.
Let's go.
If you want to say Carson Wentz was so terrible because he can't avoid sacks.
I ain't say that.
Well, the world says that.
You just want to get a point off.
Jalen Hurts got sacked 6 times against the Cardinals. Then you specifically want to say Carson Wentz is so terrible. Well, what makes him terrible? Is it the interceptions?
No, that they picked at his position and he has a $128 million extension.
I'm saying
that tells me that they think they have doubt.
Off of play, what makes Carson Wentz terrible?
What?
His interceptions.
The win-loss. He's under 500 since 2017. Come on, let's be real. Okay, that's 1. 2, how about this? Since you want to talk, don't challenge me, brother.
Please.
The Eagles have gained 400 yards in all 3 of the games since Hurts became the starter. You can laugh at that. How many times did they gain over 400 yards with Carson Wentz, since you know so much about Carson Wentz? Oh, 1? 1 out of 12 games?
We gained 400 yards.
Wait a minute.
We gained 400
Wait a minute. Look, it ain't my only stat.
What's your stat?
But my thing is, you should never be in this position if you're Carson Wentz. Acho.
What?
You have been on the team when you were the man. And when you're the man, no one takes your job. You give it up. And guess what? Carson Wentz not only gave it up this time, there was a controversy before of when he was injured, and they were like, should we give it back to him? When you make that much money, there's no excuse. When you're that much veteran than the other guy who's your competition, there's no excuse. We can't allow you to still throw Cheerios, and you in your 5th damn year, you ain't Jalen Hurts.
I'm not mad at that aspect of what you're saying.
Okay,
that makes sense. Carson Wentz is underperforming based on what he is being paid. I'm not mad at that.
And years in league.
Sure, I am not mad.
So what else is there? What else is there?
What there is this.
What else is there?
Carson Wentz is terrible. He's terrible because of the Eagles' record. He's terrible because he turns the ball over. He's terrible because he can't avoid sacks. If we were going to go down the list of why Carson Wentz is terrible, these are 3 of the main contributing factors. Well, what's the Eagles' record with Jalen Hurts? 1 and 2. That's not winning. How many times did Jalen Hurts turn the ball over last game? 3 times, all in the 4th quarter with the game on the line. 10 minutes left in the 4th quarter. Eagles down 17-30. 2-possession game. 2 touchdowns, you win the game. Jalen Hurts turnover. Eagles get the ball back again, make it a one-score game. Jalen Hurts turnover. So Carson Wentz has also been terrible because he turns the ball over. Well, Jalen Hurts also did that. Carson Wentz is been terrible because his completion percentage was 58% on average. Jalen Hurts' completion percentage is in the 55 range on average. So that's why Carson Wentz was terrible.